What is up? Welcome into this Wednesday episode of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. I don't know about you fellas, but I was binging Jim Harbaugh videos this morning.
He's the best.
I couldn't get enough.
You're trying to get that motivation, get right to come in here, Mike.
Dude, there's nothing that gets you more excited than listening to Jim Harbaugh talk.
100%.
One of one. And the video of him catching passes from Justin Herbert, he drops one, and he's like, damn it. Like cussing himself out.
Guy.
He's got gloves on.
Has gloves on in pregame, gloves, khakis, drops a warm-up pass, and is legitimately like upset at himself in a non-fake way whatsoever.
Yep.
Was truly, I just couldn't get enough.
If you were a coach, what would be your pregame tradition with your guys? Like, would you get in the would you do like one fit? You'd fit up on
I'd probably be like Vrabel.
Yeah.
I'd be in the D line and the O line.
Hat backwards.
Oh, no question. I'd have like the little dummy bag in front of me. Is that all you got?
I'd be the
It's
guy
game day, like
the linebackers, they all do their fits on tackles. I would be like, come tackle, come pick me up off the ground a couple times.
Look quick.
See, I couldn't get in that. You guys have a little different
that makes you feel alive,
to get in.
It makes you feel like you're actually part of the game.
You don't want to go cover DBs or receivers in pregame. Like, come with the big guys. It's fun in pregame.
I'd be throwing the passes to the wideouts.
There you go. Or you could be the coach that tests, that does the chest
the jam right at the line.
You're like, Coach, I need a good one. Mike's our guy. Mike, go get Mike.
The guy that slaps John Henderson.
Go get Mike. I need to see blood.
That ain't good enough.
Come
on, man. That ain't good enough.
Henderson, that was his name. Yeah. So Andre Tucker, my trainer with the Bears, when that video first got viral in like 2017, 2018, it was the first time I saw it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been around, but again, we didn't have social media.
He got slapped every game.
Every game. Every single. So I played in Jacksonville for 2 years, and they were telling me about it because a lot of the same trainers and everything were there, and they were like, "Yeah, Big John every day." And I felt bad for the guy that had to slap him because it's like, what if like a flip like just went off in his hand? He was like, "Bro, did you just slap me?
You must die now."
Did you just slap me?
That really, when I watch that clip, it just brings me back to like NFL Blitz days where it was just 100%. Like it was a different game back then.
NFL
every time
Blitz.
All right, first off the ball segment today, we're going to be getting to some deep dives. We got rookie classes. We got some pass rush. We got player podcasts we're going to be discussing. We have your mailbag questions. But in the first off the ball segment, we wanted to discuss a little bit of this. NFL announces they're trying to, in 2026, maybe expanding the NFL International Series to Australia.
Yeah.
We have Mexico. We've had England, we've had Brazil, we've had now Germany, and we may be getting in Australia. What are your guys' thoughts on the international series? Do we need
Daniel
even to
Ricciardo, the Australian legend for Formula One? He was at the Bills game, I think it was last week, trying to jump through tables. So, I mean, we got ambassadors on both sides. I think Australia is one of those countries where we're similar in a lot of ways to Australia in terms of culture. I think they would just they would take to football so well. I mean, it would be perfect.
Rugby is massive out there. I was blessed enough to go to Australia in 2016.
Wow.
I think it was 2016. Yeah, actually, me and Darrell Reeves, we went out to Australia and New Zealand.
In what capacity?
Full disclosure, story time. We going into week 17, I believe we were 10-5. We go into Buffalo. All we have to do is win, and we're in the playoffs. Right now, normally, this, Kyle, teams that even go 10-6 usually make the playoffs. Yeah. There's always a few caveats, and this is before the expansion to 7 teams. So it was only 6 teams that got in. You got to think, this was Rex Ryan's revenge game. He was the head coach for the Bills. I was still in the Jets before I went to the Bills the next year. And, they had a lot of guys banged up, too. I think Shady McCoy didn't play. I'm trying to think, the Sammy Watkins maybe didn't play either. This is when he was still a dog before the injuries and everything. So we're like, man, we go in here and take care of business now. Again, this is Buffalo at the end of the year. They're already out of playoff contention. So, of course, Rex is like, oh, yeah, I'm going to stick it to you guys. And we messed around and lost the game. We had 2 receivers drop pivotal passes. Our run defense wasn't as good.
Win and you're in.
Yeah, it was a win and you're in. It was like maybe 10 degrees. And this was one of the games that Bills Mafia wasn't out there in droves, right? Because they essentially were out of the playoffs already. So it was one of those games, this guy, you got to bring your own energy type thing. Man, we ended up losing. And the craziest thing, we were the hottest team going into that week. I think we had won 5 straight. So we felt like once we got in, nobody wanted to see us. So that game affected a lot of us for a long. I think it still affects me to this day.
It affected you so much you went to Australia.
Exactly. So caveat again.
That's a long flight.
We went and we planned it out that we would be in the air during the Super Bowl, so we didn't have to watch it.
Oh, there you go.
That's
So,
like Joe Thomas fishing on draft day.
Yeah, man.
I just miss it.
I didn't want anything to do with the Super Bowl because we really felt like we had the team. Like if we got in because we were hot, like nobody was going to see us. So that's why I went to Australia. I just didn't want to be around football
trip because of a loss I've ever
100%.
Like, I
wanted to go to the other side of the world.
You know, I went to the moon last year after we got eliminated. So you were in Australia.
Yep.
I mean, how do you think that they're going to take to the NFL?
They're going to love it, man. So interesting thing, even though we were out there, we Bondi Beach, Sydney, if you haven't been, make sure you go. It's an amazing place. They have like football bars out there, like American football bars. So they already are kind of excited about the NFL game. So I think it would be an amazing thing. Now, the time difference, like you would think they'd probably do that early in the season if they do that game. It depends, like, do you want to be one of those teams? Because now you have the option to take your bye after an international trip. I think it's mandatory. You got to take a bye if you go to Australia. It's literally on the other side of the world, man. And the time difference is insane. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say it's like 12 or 13 hours. Like it's something crazy. So it's just like
the toilets flush the other way there.
That's what I heard. I don't actually remember looking though.
That's the difference between a hurricane and a cyclone, typhoon. They go the different ways,
different opposite ways. But no, Australia.
We're gonna have to figure that out before we go.
Honestly, y'all should send us if they do go out there.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
I was at a Packers game last year, Packers Chargers, and we get sat next to with my brothers. We sit next to a guy who's alone at the game, striking a conversation with him. Turns out he's from Australia. And he was telling me about how the game's massive there. There's like a bunch of fans.
There's a lot of fans.
They love rugby, but that the NFL game's growing there. He said the time difference makes it tough, but a lot of people go to bars like in the middle of the night to watch games and stuff like that. So it's.
I'm telling you, so we were at
popular.
Bondi Beach like during the day and then turned the night, and like so the playoffs are obviously going on. That's why we left. We want to see them, but it was a massive fan base watching the game.
There's going to be so many athletes coming out of Australia in the next 2 decades.
It already has started. Whether it's the Punter Academy that's over there, whether it's
there's
Jordan
some big
Mailata
bastards over there.
I was about to say,
come help us immediately.
It's funny. When I was
train you up, get you right.
I kind of memory hold that the NFL used to have the preseason game in Japan.
Yeah,
remember that
for sure.
And then they realized it's like no Japanese people are going to be big enough to play.
I think my dad played in one of those games.
That's dope.
Yeah. There's a picture. Yeah, we got to call him up.
It was from 1979 to 2005.
FaceTime him maybe on the show. But there's a picture of my dad at the coin toss, and there's like a sumo wrestler, and like
that's amazing.
It seems to be like a samurai somewhere in the shot. I'm like, Dad, where is this? And it's either it was somewhere in Japan.
I do feel like though that's a long flight, and I know they're going to schedule it around bye weeks and whatnot. But
what they would probably do is 2 West Coast teams do it.
Yeah.
Right. To make it a little bit easier. And then have
it bye week the next week.
Correct.
But you almost have to have a bye week before and after.
I think it's the coolest thing ever that NFL teams get to go play internationally because as a football player, as an athlete, these guys aren't playing football and then having 2 off seasons in high school. They're 3-sport athletes. Then they go to college and they're 365 days a year being an athlete. They don't get to travel. We don't get to experience other cultures. So for the NFL allowing us to go to a place like, even for me, London, I had never been to Europe. To Europe. Going to London was my first time, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I wish I got to do it once a year in my career.
It's a caveat. It depends on the coach, man, because we got out there like on a Friday.
You tell me me and the boys are going to Dubai to go kick some ass.
I would love it. No, I would love it. I'm just saying, like, so when we went to London.
Rio?
We went to London with Bowles, and he was mad because we lost the week before. Now, again, I think they already had the schedule, and he had done his research in regards to talking to different coaches, like what's the best thing to do? Is it try to get out there on Tuesday and get acclimated to the time zone? Is it leave Thursday after practice and get out?
No.
We left Thursday after practice. I mean, we smoked the Miami Dolphins, so I was everybody else, and they were terrible at the time, too. That's when Philbin got fired, like on the tarmac. It was after that game. And also, there was some motivation. Bowles told us, because he was like, you guys lost the week before. If you win this game by 21, who in the NFL wins by 21? That's a Madden score. You got to give up.
Which coach says that? If you win by 21.
You know what we won by?
21.
20. He was like, if you win by 21, I'm going to give you the whole bye week off because we had to bye after that. He was like,
you had to lift on Wednesday.
Oh, we had to be here on Wednesday, bro. Everybody was sick.
He didn't make it acceptable.
Oh, no, he did not. He was like, you got to be here on Wednesday. I was like, are you? I'm like, who wins? What pissed me off is they kicked a field goal late being down by 20. Like they were down by like 23.
You were like a sports bettor during that game. Damn it! Make a play out
Never
there.
seen a team rush a field goal block so hard.
So like the other night, I had Lions minus 3.5, and it was my best bet against Prisco, which is my baby. I worry. I focus on my best bet, and they got the ball at the end, and I was like, man, I just hope they keep it tied so they can get to overtime. Because the field goal doesn't win it for
Exactly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
International trips, though, I'm excited. So you said Australia. What are the other ones that were announced?
Ireland was talked about.
Ireland's going to be sick. Yeah. Are you kidding me? You know how many Irish head coaches there are in the NFL? All the family members are going to show up. There's going to be all these people, You remember me? Mike McCarthy? Mike McDaniel?
That would be great. I think Ireland would be amazing as well.
I'm trying to think of what other destinations would you even want to go.
Wasn't there somewhere else? I know they did Brazil this past year. I think there was another.
Brazil, Germany.
Yeah.
Mexico.
I think it would be the coolest thing ever if the NFL worked out a deal with the government to be able to play at one of these iconic national park venues. Like, I'm talking very minimal stands. You know how like the hockey teams go to Fenway?
Yeah, exactly.
They go to Fenway and they play outdoors at night. Like, what if we set up some kind of perfect football game set up?
That would be cool.
Like we go to Yellowstone,
that would be amazing,
and you play, or you can go to like
Grand Canyon,
Red Rocks,
in the canyon,
set it up,
run it. I don't, coaches. I don't care if we play in a Walmart parking lot.
I got to figure out like how they're going to do it with all the cameras, right? There's like power outlets,
drones.
Yeah, that's actually interesting.
Drones. We got batteries.
Batteries on top of batteries.
I'm interested. That's the best idea I've heard yet. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After this, going to get to our deep dive segments.
Saturdays at 3:30. It's big time. Saturday on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, deep dive segment where we talk about, whatever we want to talk about. Leger, what do you want to talk about?
You want me to start off first?
Yeah, kick it off with us.
So I wanted to talk about the evolution of the pass rush game. Mm-hmm. I know people are always excited when they see these different twists up front, and I wanted to break it down from the elementary standpoint and then where it's evolutionized when people are starting to use it via the blitz game as well. So I pulled out the whiteboard.
Let's go.
Hopefully you're better on the whiteboard than I am.
Oh, yeah, whiteboard. Yeah, give me my one shot. There it is right there. Yep. So up top, and we're going to show you clips of this. So I just want y'all to see the top half. Ignore the bottom half. Top half.
Microphone.
Right, so this is
you draw it defensively, by the way.
100%. That's 100%.
I was like, what am I looking at?
Yes, so you see it up top right here. It's an offensive tackle, guard, center, guard, tackle, running back, quarterback. And this is the simplest way to explain this, right? On defense, we always want to dictate the protection. Right, we want to know where the center is sliding. This is the plain and simple one. Center's going away from the running back, right here on the nose tackle. So right here on this side, let me write this in for you guys. We call this a text game. Tackle first, end around. TE.
Tough.
Exactly. That's what you guys call it on offense.
When I was growing up, my dad used to talk about pick.
Go back to my single. Text game right here, right? So you can see. The tackle, he's going to penetrate in this B gap and then ricochet off the tackle. You got this end taking it up. You essentially want to get 2-on-1, whether it's on the tackle or the guard.
You're trying to set this offensive tackle up. You're trying to get him to widen.
Correct.
To get away from his guard buddy because when they stay hip to hip, it's tough for you guys to get home.
100%. So we always want to get guys on different levels. Right. So this guy, the end guy, he has the cell that he's rushing up the field to get that tackle to open up. Got a perfect example of it. I'll let my guy, Harry.
Oh, nice.
Go to the clip. This is Braden Fisk and Michael Hoyt to the left. So he gets to the hip of the tackle and comes underneath. Like, that's picture perfect by Braden Fisk. This is why I loved him coming out of the draft, the explosive ability. He gets punched originally. That's a good job by the guard being aggressive, but he stays on that line, right? And that's job by Michael Hoyt taking up the field. Now, he actually stumbles, which I think actually helps them out in this pass rush game.
It comes like a natural.
It comes a natural. That's what we call it, too, a natural. You see Hoyt falling up underneath. Nice job by Braden Fisk right there on that text time.
Run it back one more time, and I'll give one coaching point here for the right tackle. So just run it at full speed here, which we got going on. You see how wide he gets?
And he turns his shoulders, too.
You want to set with depth, but you don't want to gain any width because width opens up that inside hip for that 3 technique to be able to come and pick you. That's when you see the defensive end retrace, come back upfield, and then it's 2 guys unblocked instead of 2 guys blocked.
For context, that is Michael Jarrell, the 6th.
I was about to say that's the backup tackle. So that's another thing you have to understand.
Everybody can get coached up, Mikey.
Yeah. This is the other thing you understand is on the defensive line, we know if the starter's not in.
I've seen first rounders set like that too.
Yeah, facts. We know if the starter's not in, and Kyle, you know this, it takes game reps and practice reps with the guys you're with to pass rush games properly, right? Because how one guy sets is totally different than the next guy. So if you're accustomed to your guy that's always there with you setting a certain way, right, it depends on how you set inside as a guard, right? He probably is accustomed to Abraham Lucas being a little bit more aggressive and square, right, in that set. So he was like, I'm going to jump this guard because if I put hands on him, I know Lucas is going to stay square and he can pass that off a lot easier. Well, Jarrell's was in there, who hasn't had a lot of reps. He opens up the floodgate by turning his shoulders right away and getting too much.
All he's thinking about is not getting beat around.
Correct.
So his reaction is, I got to get to my landmark quick. He's not thinking about our situation.
Correct.
And when you have the center going away, you know it's a 2-on-2 rep. That's when smart defensive linemen like yourself say, text.
Or, hey, I'm hitting it high, natural. Just feel me. I'll be the contain guy. You just wrap around. That was a good job by Braden Fitz and Michael Hoyt. All right, let's go back to the whiteboard. This is the evolution of it. Now we want to bring more guys to the party and really make the offensive line think. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys at the line of scrimmage. We call this a load front to the right. So you have the nose, the 3 technique, and the edge guy. But we're also bringing a backer in between the nose tackle and the 3 technique right here.
Too many.
That way you get a full slide to the left. Again, trying to dictate the protection. Right on this backside here, you have a backer instead of a defensive tackle. He's mugged up in the B gap. You have a defensive end and you have the safety off the edge. So on the snap, you get full slide. The guard goes away. You get the nose coming back around.
This would be a lion call, bringing the backside guard to help at that looping nose.
For sure. So now, remember, we just saw the defensive tackle and run the text game. Now you get it from a stand-up backer, and this is the evolution of it, right? Now backers and safeties are getting in the pass rush games. You're going to get the backer penetrating in the B gap. He's going to ricochet off the tackle. The end's going to sell it up the field, come around, and then you have the safety coming off the edge. Again, they actually have enough to block it because the tight end chip and the back's there. But if you're able to get to this tackle's hip, right, they're dead. They're dead. The backer. If he's able to get to this tackle's hip and ricochet, it's over. I don't care if you do have a running back right here. We have another clip showing it right here. Go ahead, Harry. Roll that beautiful beam footage. We're going to see it right here. Jordan Brooks penetrate right there. Chop Robinson come around, and then you get the safety off the edge. Again, they had more than enough to block, but because they dictated the protection, you see everybody to the far right, the center has to go left, the guard has to come with him, because you're essentially thinking 4 guys are coming. But you're going to see that defensive end, he's going to drop out, and that backer's going to drop out. So now we got exactly what we want, right? Again, nice job by Jordan Brooks and also Chop Robinson selling it. Brooks hits the offensive tackle. Watch how he ricocheted. Now the back's there, and we had rules as a defensive lineman. A back is not going to block you. I don't care if it is Kyron Williams. And then a nice job by Javon Holland staying tight. He's the contain guy, attacking the upfield shoulder. But I love the evolution of pass rush games, not only with the defensive line, but getting linebackers and safeties involved as well.
And I love that to hear and see it there. That's a great job with that clip. And one thing I noticed at the tail end of my career was that these linebackers were able to run the text games like you're talking about from off ball as well.
From a 2-point stance off the ball.
In Minnesota, it would be Anthony Barr. Anthony Barr, who was 6'4", 2.5.
Essentially a DN.
So he really is a DN. And he would come. He wouldn't look at you. He wouldn't look at the B gap or the C gap the entire pre-snap process. You be there making your mics, yada, yada, yada. You take one step, the defensive end drops, and next thing you know, there comes Anthony Barr to pick the hip. So, I mean, to your point, there are so many different ways to get home as a pass rusher, as a D coordinator, and we're seeing it now. And people bitch about the O-line protection issues around the league. At a certain point, you got to say, these guys get paid.
Tip your hat. You got to tip your hat to the defense.
And this is the Mike McDonald, Brian Flores-ification of the NFL that we're seeing is that Anthony Weaver, the DC, came from Baltimore. Mike McDonald, the first clip, or no, it was the
second clip.
Second clip. That it's like these fronts, it looks complex, like when you're writing it there, but they have the ability to kind of rotate any of those guys to any of those positions on that front. And so it's very actually simple for the defensive linemen to, they know they only have a handful of blitzes that they do run, but they can make it look like anything else because they can run it with 4 down linemen, 3 down linemen, 4 backers. Like they can do whatever, 4 edge rushers out there. They can really put any guy anywhere, and that's the beauty of it. And I think from like a high level perspective, why we're seeing offense look so difficult is that they're willing to do these things. This used to be like reserved for third downs, right? And early downs, it was run game, run game.
Yeah.
Now exotics are a first down play.
Oh, 100%.
Teams just stop caring about gap control in the running game as much as can we just create havoc?
That's all you want to do.
Because if you can get a negative play in the running game on an early down by getting penetrators, by getting a stunt that works out, a run blitz, whatnot, that's as good as, 3 runs in a row that go for 2 yards. Yeah. Like you want the negative plays that you can generate regardless, because one explosive run, 15 yards, they're not worried about that if the next 2 are going to go for negative. So that's all they're trying to do in the NFL nowadays. It's not as much this sort of let's gap control, let's play sound defense. It's let's just try to make life as difficult as possible for offense.
Which is why the technique is so important. Yeah. And I don't expect you guys to know the nuances of the technique at the offensive line position, of which there are infinite combinations to get it done. But technique is more important now in the protection game than it ever has been before. And the reason you have technique is to protect you from these situations like the ones you've drawn up today. And when you don't have technique, you can see it like our guy at right tackle for the Seattle Seahawks. It's going to be a struggle.
And continuity. Technique and continuity.
I was going to say, and that's what I was talking about earlier with Kyle. Like, it's one thing, offensive line is like a rope, right? And when you move a piece, you have to cut it off and like tie it together. Now you have a lump in your line. Yep. Guys aren't on the same page. And so what Mike was talking about earlier, positionless football is really what defense is all about right now. You talked about Mike McDaniel and Anthony Weaver coming from the same tree. And this was the Miami Dolphins defense I thought I was going to see for most of the year. Now, they've dealt with some injuries, right? Javon Holland made a return. Zach Sealer made his return. Cater Kohu made his return. So they literally had an injury at all 3 levels, right? So it's hard to really play that positionless football when your main guys, because they are top heavy when it comes to their roster, because they've shelved out so much money to the top guys on that team, that a guy like Jalen Ramsey, you really can't use his skill set and move him around. They had to play Jalen Ramsey in the slot for the last couple of weeks because they didn't trust anybody besides Caden Curry. Yeah, out of a need. Now, bring Kohu back. Now we can move Jalen Ramsey around. We can bring Javon Holland, who's one of the best blitzing safeties. He's a guy that can tackle in the open space. Jordan Brooks, you can use his skill set in regards to him being a pick guy to rush the passer. And they have the edge guys that can drop in zone coverage. So that's what I love. I love the evolution of the pass rush game. But to Mike's point, it's because everybody's playing positionless football makes it so much harder for the offensive line.
We have to go pre-snap and determine. We talk every Monday with Matt Ryan, and we talk about what you have to do pre-snap, and it's all about identifying the known rushers. Who do I really think is a legitimate threat to rush? And when they're all at the line of scrimmage, it makes our conversations longer, more stressful, because not only, to your point, is there position fluidity now in the NFL, but the numbers are all messed up. Like we've got defensive linemen in singles, we've got linebackers in singles, and all these different combinations of numbers. When I first got in the league, it was 94 is a known rusher, 52 is a linebacker. He ain't rushing. Now it's like anybody can rush from anywhere on the football field at any given time.
And it's why I'll talk about this come draft, but I think everyone's going to be coveting just athletic guys on the defensive line, because a lot of these, we just saw that Chop Robinson rep. He didn't have to beat anyone. He just had to run a 4.4. And he runs a 4.4 to get home. It's like Yaya Diaby with Bucks this year. He's been so impactful, not because he wins a ton of one-on-ones, but it's because he runs a 4.5 at 270 pounds. It's like that guy can get around the edge on a blitz or a stunt. If you just are a little off kilter, he's going to run right through your arm. So people are going to be coveting defensive linemen that just have juice more so than ever, even if they don't necessarily have a fully refined pass rushing toolbox. They're still going to be weapons once he gets to the league.
And this is the draft to have them too, because there's a couple guys that can go.
It's the best position in the draft, in my opinion, at this point in time. All right, I want to talk about a little bit of the draft, but last year's draft. The best rookie classes in the NFL so far this season. I'm going to give my top 10. You guys comment on who you think should be higher, lower, agree, disagree. I'll start from 10. I'll work 10 down. I said Bucks
like that.
At 10. Highlights, Graham Barton.
Yep.
Tyke Smith in the slot.
Yep.
Graham Barton at center. Bucky Irving's been awesome as a 4th-round running back. 125 overall. Jalen McMillan at 92. I feel kind of bad leaving them this low down, but I do think Barton's been more flashes than consistent. Like in 2 years, this class could be much higher. And I think we'll be talking about as much higher when McMillan gets healthy and is playing more. The talent is there to be a special class. for the Bucs. I love what they've done. Titans at number 9. J.C. Latham has been the second best rookie offensive tackle behind Joe Alt this season. He's been awesome for them. I think a lot of people were worried. It's like, can he be a tackle at the next level? Will he, be good switching sides from right to left?
Mm-hmm.
Knock that out the park really quickly with his play so far this season. Tavondre Sweat, yeah, he's slowed down, and I think his weight's going to be a massive.
Beastly,
but you see that he has the potential. I think you're going to need to get that guy on. What was Prisco talking about? Ozempic yesterday? He might need a prescription
crazy.
At some
That
point.
is crazy.
Do we think though in the NFL that's going to become a thing?
I mean, Travis is doing Pfizer stuff, so why can't Tavondre?
Yo.
But like for these
his coaches would support it.
Remember like Snacks, like
you know how many coaches would have put me on Ozempic in my career?
Terrence Knighton back in the day.
Oh,
Paros. He was like he just ate himself out the league, man. He was 4+ by the end. It's like some of these guys. That's the only thing keeping them from
Ozempic is
really.
PED.
I would have to do the research.
Yeah,
I don't think is it banned by the NFL.
Is that what Jameson Williams took? Ozempic? I don't know.
Could it give you an advantage?
He was taking Blue Chew. But if he just gets his weight under control, Fire Sweat's a problem. And then Jarvis Brownlee been one of the best corners in this rookie class. So their class has been outstanding. The Raiders I have at number 8. Raiders, it's just the top 2 guys. Brock Bowers, Jackson Powers-Johnson. They've been awesome. Great. And Bowers easily the best rookie tight end. I mean, he might be a top 5 tight end in the NFL already. He's been so good for them. I have the Chargers at number 7. Joe Alt, Ladd McConkey, Cam Hart as a 5th rounder. Very good rookie class from them.
Still too, right?
Tariq Still. And Junior Colson has been starting of late. So great rookie class. Eagles I have at number 6. Not quite top 5, number 6. But Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, those 2 guys. That's it.
That's all you got to say.
They're awesome. I mean, they revamped their secondary.
Those guys.
Johnny Wilson's starting to come along too a little
in
bit.
1 year. So yeah, Johnny Wilson. I thought that was one of the steals of the draft. Hopefully he develops. But those
how long before he puts that hand in the dirt?
Dude, it's got to be soon. He's so big. He's so damn big.
I think the Broncos.
He looks
are next.
so out of place at wide receiver.
Are the Broncos next?
Broncos did not make my top 10. I have the Giants next at number 5 on this list because one, Malik Neighbors is just special. Now that kind of picked itself, right? At number 6.
It was really good in the beginning. It hasn't been as great, but that's quarterback driven as well.
Quarterback driven. I think Andrew Phillips has been one of the best rookie slot corners. You have Theo Johnson looks good at tight end, and then Tyrone Tracy, one of the steals of the draft as a 5th rounder.
You didn't say the guy I thought you would say. You don't think Newman's played well?
Newman's been fine. I don't think he's like a special for a set. He was a top 50 pick. He's for the perspective of where he was drafted, he's been solid, but that's a top 5 class. That's sorely, sorely needed for that team with where they've been. Number 4, I have the Green Bay Packers, a draft that, they've been kind of hot lately. And this one, Jordan Morgan's been rotating, but when he has played, he's looked good for a rookie guard. But then Edgerrin Cooper has been a playmaker for them. Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, 2 stud safeties already out the gate. That looks like a home run of a draft for them. Los Angeles Rams at 3 now. Maybe a little low, but we'll get to the top 2.
That's all you got to say.
The 2 D linemen off the top.
Reloading.
D-line.
Cam Kitchen had some splash plays. Blake Corum's look good in sort of, when Kyron Williams has to go out. It was kind of a luxury pick when they picked him. It was weird in my opinion, but he's been as advertised. But those top 2, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, have changed their pass rushing game immensely. And then Jordan Whittington as a 6th rounder looks like he's at least
a playmaker. I loved him.
Better than most 6th rounders. But your top 2 classes in this year's draft, I don't think are up for debate. San Francisco 49ers hit an absolute home run with this class. Their first 4 picks, even maybe first 6 picks, if you just go through them. Ricky Pearsall has been awesome since getting shot, right? Come back from that. Renardo Green starting the past 4 weeks, and he's been able to keep.
I loved him out of Florida. I had him as a 3rd round pick.
He's been able to keep Deommodore Lenoir in the slot where he's at his best and not have to force him to play outside.
That's the reason why he got paid.
And then he gets paid, because he's such a good slot, but not quite the same effectiveness on the outside. But Green's been great on the outside. Dominic Puny, the best rookie interior offensive lineman. Malik Mustafa for a 4th rounder has been awesome, starting at safety for Talanoa Hufanga. And then you got Isaac Orendo, Jacob Cowing, not necessarily like high-end impact players, but for their roles. For their roles,
he has 2 as a punt returner.
And so that class just home run after home run for the 49ers. And then number 1, though, has to be the Commanders. when you get
just Jaden Daniels.
It doesn't matter. When you get Jaden Daniels,
you guys missed the Bears on the list.
You had a great rookie class. I also like Luke McCaffrey as a late third rounder. Mike Sainer still is already their best corner. Well, not after Marshawn Lattimore got traded for them, but he was before that. Ben Sinnott hasn't gotten playing time over Zach Ertz, but I loved him in the preseason.
I don't understand that. I love Zach Ertz, but and again, I say this with all due respect because Zach Ertz is a dog. I mean, it feels like he's lost a little bit of stuff, had some crucial drops in that game. And then with the game on the line, again, I say this with a caveat because I know the NFL is hard, right? So I always put myself in other players' shoes because I played, so I know. On that fourth down catch, if he doesn't just drop to a knee and he stayed, because the ball was at chest, it was a perfect throw. It was at chest level. If he doesn't just go to a knee, they get a first down easily. It's not even up for debate. So
it's so hard to play
I know it is, but I'm like, I feel like Ben Sinnott could give them some juice.
You and me don't even touch the ball. We never touch the ball. I'm like, yo, this shit is so hard. That yellow line, they don't even see it. And the fact that he was right there, I mean, that's incredible in and of itself.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
But I do agree. 3 of the guys that I loved pre-draft aren't even necessarily making plays for them either. We didn't even mention Brandon Coleman, who's now their starting left tackle and been doing well there. But 3 of the guys I love, Johnny Newton, who had the brutal offsides penalty.
Oh, my goodness.
Dijo, don't jump offside.
Ben Sinnott, and then Jordan McGee as a 5th rounder, I think is perfect for that scheme once he gets playing time.
Go out there, close your eyes, close your ears, don't move.
You know they're not snapping that.
Oh, that was so frustrating.
I felt so bad for Johnny because he's played really well the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
And I'm like, I know this dude didn't just jump offside.
He'll be the best on that defensive line at not jumping offsides from now on.
100%.
He'll be puckered up.
So anyone you guys wanted to mention or anything you think I got wrong in that? You said the Broncos, Kyle.
Yeah, well, I mean, they got their quarterback pick, right?
Which
is huge. I mean, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels has the Commanders as the number 1 rookie class in the NFL. It's because first and foremost, they got their quarterback right. And I feel like in a league like the NFL, if you don't get your quarterback right, you're in trouble. And obviously they got the quarterback right. They got the play caller right. They got a lot of things right. Free agency at the
They didn't have much of a choice in that quarterback, though. It was like Bo Nix or Spencer Rattler, right? There was that.
Pretty much.
That was they could have traded
last team.
I don't know what they tried to do to move up, or if they did, or
but they didn't have really the juice to move up because they didn't have a second rounder. So they were always kind of stuck at 12. But I do think that was the ideal pick for them, even if you're comparing them to the 2 guys who went before him, whether it's J.J. McCarthy, whether it was Michael Penix. I think for that offense, I always thought Bo Nix was the best. And I think you're seeing it right away. It's just how high does Bo Nix ceiling push?
Where would J.J. McCarthy rank if he played this year, in your opinion?
I don't know. So I had him as QB5 pre-draft.
Do you think he even plays this year over Sam Darnold?
I don't think so.
Yes. With the way, so Matthew Collar, I know well, he's Vikings Purple Insider. He said that J.J. McCarthy was the better quarterback in training camp.
Really?
Yes.
From everything that I saw and people I talked to, that's not what I heard that J.J. was coming along later on.
Yeah, maybe he was more just like because of the rookie, he would want to start him. Yeah. They're like better in terms of like that.
But I'm like, if they had this record now, there's no way you put J.J. McCarthy in.
True. At this point. But Darnold, the past couple weeks,
it's coming to Jesus moment now.
He's getting real autumnal, looking like a pumpkin out there.
He's looking real Sam Darnold-ish the last couple of weeks.
Like a pumpkin. Okay.
All right, we're gonna actually save your deep dive for the mailbag question because they go over each other perfectly. So we're gonna take a quick break and get to your guys' mailbag questions.
It's a team almost too good to be true.
You guys ain't ready for us.
Kick your game day off right as the Tops team tackles all the biggest headlines around the league.
Who's got 2 thumbs and loves this next segment?
Sunday mornings on CBS Sports Network.
All right, we're going to start with this 5-star review from Nerd Rock for Life. He says, I'm not sure why the ratings are so low for the show. This is my favorite football podcast easily. I think we know why. We don't have to discuss why. Question for Kyle. If you could have a podcast with 3 other O linemen talking about your time in the game, who would they be? I would want to hear from Joe Thomas and Orlando Pace.
First and foremost, Joe Thomas, Orlando Pace, probably great choices because they played in, they overlapped a little bit perhaps, or not at all, but they have a lot of those eras covered, right? So Joe Thomas has the 2000s from 07. Was he 07?
He was a year before us. Yes,
so he's got from there to now covered. Orlando Pace would have a lot of that stuff before social media covered. But look, I mean, you couldn't handle what happens in offensive line rooms. You would not be, and I'm not saying like we're badasses and we're tough. I'm just saying it's the most unserious group of human beings, the dirtiest group of human beings you'll ever be around. Not only that, I think that the offensive line are the funniest guys on the football team. If I were to start an offensive line only podcast, the two first guys I'm calling is Richie Incognito and Josh Sitton.
Without a doubt.
And I don't need to tell any Richie Incognito stories to get you to understand that he was very entertaining.
You guys know all the Richie.
But Josh Sitton was a guy that played in Green Bay, and he was an all-pro. And
CF, baby.
In my mind, he's a guy that could be in contention for Hall of Fame. But
he was so good. He was.
I think he got into the Hall of Fame for Green Bay already.
So
2 years ago.
So as a player, he's got pelts on the wall. He'd be somebody you'd want to hear from. He got to protect Aaron Rodgers for the lion's share of his career, and got to play next to a lot of really good players. But he played opposite the other guard, TJ Lang, who I have a lot of respect for as well. Another guy that would be a recurring guest on the show is TJ Lang.
I swear, Sitton was so good, and this is just an out there take, but because of how he was built, he had that like the big spinal curve outward.
Yes.
He always had his belly pushed out, and so he just had natural leverage because you could just like sit on his own.
Down on bull. He would, like Jari Evans in New Orleans, would take on a bull rush and bend backwards like a giant like rubber band, and then he would just stop the guys in their track. But Josh Sitton, the guy, was more impressive to me than Josh Sitton, the player, and that's saying a lot. Every single day I would come in the building looking forward to what Josh Sitton, the salty old vet, had to say. What was he going to bitch about today? What was he going to call Dal Loggins, our offensive coordinator, on in the meeting? And, he's the guy in a meeting. We would put a play up. We would install a play. Well, we're going to play in Buffalo. They like to do this with their safety. I think we'll get him here. Josh Sitton would raise his pencil in the air in the front row and go, that shit ain't going to work.
That's
and
if
you've been in NFL meetings before, you don't say that. You just say, yes, sir.
Josh's going to say whatever he wants to say.
We will go blindly into the night. Good, sir. Josh Sitton, not the case. So Josh had beautiful flowing hair. Like Clay. Imagine a 340-pound Clay Matthews with that beautiful hair.
Matter of fact, wasn't him, Clay, and all them in that
Pitch Perfect.
Pitch Perfect, correct.
Yeah. So, if you're a music fan, you've seen Josh Sitton. But he would sit in the meetings and he would sweat profusely indoors in air conditioning. And he would sit in the front row of the meeting. I'd sit right next to him. And he always had a big, giant Gatorade towel around his neck. And he'd wipe the sweat off and he'd hawk loogies in meetings. He was he was so entertaining. And he did everything a little bit more elevated, like to make a scene. He would get up in the middle of film and walk slowly to the door of the meeting room. And the coach would go, Dave Magazoo, God rest his soul, our O-line coach, where are you going, Joshua? And he would go, I'm going to take a piss. And he'd say, not until this play's over. And Josh goes, you're not my fucking dad.
We all know my guy's country's from Pensacola, man.
Yo, Josh Sitton, Richie Incognito, those would be my guys. And I think it's important to point out, we're going to work into my deep dive conversation now here. And this is perfect. Thank you very much. But player podcasts, okay? And I want to gauge your opinions on this, because guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown and his brother Equinemius, they have a podcast. I think it's awesome. They're fantastic dudes, great players. Micah Parsons, obviously a living legend, pass rusher, great player, but even more impressive on the podcast. I think he's I'm not surprised at how bright he is, because I know how smart you have to be to play the game of football. But they're heady in the media space. CJ Stroud is really heady in the media space. All these guys, it's not surprising. But at what point do you say, enough is enough, this is too much?
Too much.
At what point are you a GM and you say, I'm not going to sign that guy because I know he's got a podcast? At what point are you a head?
Who's not signing Micah Parsons?
How many guys are Micah Parsons?
That's true.
What I'm talking about is the stuff in Chicago, the stuff in Tennessee that we saw last week. Our guys aren't playing. Indianapolis, our guys aren't preparing hard enough. Stuff like that. Crazy. The media used to be, we had a script that we would abide by pretty much.
Like, what happened to the media training?
Less is more, right? Don't give them anything. Say a lot, but don't say anything. Now, and I don't blame you for saying how you feel or what's actually going on, but read the room sometimes and understand that you could be doing more damage with your words than the subject that you're covering.
If I can give any players advice on a podcast, I would say wait until you are 2 to 3 years from retiring. Do not start at year 2, dude. Micah Parsons like, do not start it until you are prepping for that next step if you want to go into media, because during your entire career, it can only do you like. It can only backfire on you. And
I would have got
more access to the media isn't the greatest thing.
Yes,
I would have been cut or canceled had I had a podcast while I was in the league, because I would have been pissed off at something that happened in practice. I would have said something bad about
crazy,
you.
right? Yeah.
Said something about the quarterback. I would have complained about a 4th down call that you don't complain about when you're surrounded by the crowd of media in the locker room. You say, I got to be better on that block, or we got to get the mic better, mic point better. But when you got some time to digest it, come up with an opinion, and then sit down in your studio that you pay to keep the lights on, you can say whatever you want.
Correct. I would say this. I just think there's been a change in how some of the, I don't even want to sound old, but how some of the younger players think, right?
Dude, we are old now.
I guess, right? So perfect example, like Draymond was kind of like the first one to evolutionize this, right? And to Mike's point, he was doing that towards the end of his career. Like you knew he had like probably
Lawan and Compton at the end.
At the end, 3 or 4 years left, and he's doing it. And it was bright, right? Because why wait to tell the story when you can monetize it for you, right? Yep. Because people essentially want to hear from the player anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So like I thought it was smart. Now I thought he was doing a bit much, especially because he was doing it like during the finals and doing it in the playoffs. I'm like, all right, like most players like kind of like back off of social media a little bit when you're in runs.
0 dark 30, LeBron.
Yeah, exactly. Like you get off social media and everything. But that's when he was heightened, and that's when his podcast kind of took off. So I think everybody saw that blueprint and was like, well, shoot, if he can monetize that, why can't I do it? And I think that's where we are now in sports. I don't really see it going back. But to your point, like what happened to media training? A perfect example, and this is not me throwing the young guy under the bus, Malachi Corley. I don't know if you guys remember Thursday Night Football. Yes. He gets an end around and drops the ball before crossing the goal line, which, again, coaches preach that every training camp, every practice, run through the end zone before you drop the ball, because I don't understand how this keeps happening in college or in the NFL. He gets asked a question about it, and he was like, somebody asked him, what's the coaching point? So, it really isn't a coaching point. I've scored over 200 times. And again, I don't think he meant anything bad by it, but I'm like, dude, read the room. All you had to say was, you know what? I made a mistake.
That was on me.
Thank God it didn't cost us the game. It will not happen again. I've already apologized to my teammates. And nobody else would have followed up with a question at all. But because that was your answer, you got peppered left and right with questions like, there's really not a coaching point. I've scored 200. It's like you said, read the room. I don't get it. So, again, I just think this is where we're at now in the landscape of media. I don't think it's going to change. I remember Brandon Marshall, he's my teammate. He was doing Inside the NFL, and a lot of players felt a way about it because
I remember that.
Because he was doing what's playing, right? So it was different. So I was doing stuff for SNY, the local Jets media company in New York.
Yep.
But it was talking about the Jets, so I wasn't talking about other teams.
Yes.
Right.
It was an extension of the locker room.
Right. I was working on my craft, but it was only about the Jets. People started feeling away because it's like now you're talking about other teams and you have to fly to New York. Or when he was in New York, it was fine. But when he was in Chicago, he was flying to New York. And it's just like, how are you prepping for the game while still prepping for other teams to do the show? And I think, I don't know, it must be embarrassing because I think Greg Olsen did it too during the season. He called the game. Remember, I don't know if you guys remember it.
It was right before my time.
It was on a bye week. And he called it, he called the game, I think it was for Fox. And it was his prep thing because he knew what he wanted to do at next level. And everybody was like, how the heck are you calling the game for another team while you're still playing in the game? So, again, it's kind of like NIL. I don't know if you can change it at this point because it's here to stay. But it's like Kyle said, sometimes you just have to read the room, and some things are just meant for the locker room and not for your podcast. Yes, you can monetize it, but could you potentially be hurting yourself in the future when it comes to a deal from an owner. Now, again, if you're Micah Parsons, you're Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're one of one. People are going to pay you regardless.
So I started this conversation off with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Micah Parsons, how both of them have podcasts. Both of them are wildly popular, but they are on different ends of the spectrum in terms of the culture of the locker room. How does Detroit handle Amon-Ra St. Brown doing a podcast, having guests from the Packers and the Bears and other teams around the NFL?
I think it's weird, too.
But then you get Micah Parsons, who's on a team like the Dallas Cowboys, who are plummeting towards the earth right now. And not only does he talk about the Cowboys, he talks about other teams. He talks glowingly about other teams.
He does.
And he talks about other quarterbacks. He talks about other.
You remember that one with Trayvon Diggs?
That would be a very strange place for me to be as a quarterback, as an offensive lineman. And somebody would be like, hey, my man, like, I understand that you're Micah. You are cool as shit. We all love you.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it's like,
if you want to do that, save it for the offseason, dude. Like, don't do that while we're in it right now. You're
in the thick of it.
You're talking about, again, glowing reviews on other teams and other quarterbacks while we're stinking up the place right now. Like, I wonder how that locker room is looking at that. And again, I'm always here for guys monetizing their likeness and everything.
100%.
I just think during the season, there's not a time for that. Like, you shouldn't be talking to guys on another team on a podcast during the season. I had a rule. Like, I have real close friends in the league, but they would notice before the game, this is all you're getting.
Yep.
One of these. Go ahead, put it out.
No friends.
I don't talk to them. I'll talk to you after the game.
What a Drake say.
That's
no
the mindset.
In the industry, my brother's still.
Exactly. Like, that's the mindset you have to have. Like, you got the warrior mentality. Like I've had good friends that were offensive linemen, but I wanted to rip their face off during the game. So like, I'm not doing a podcast with you that week that we're about to play you. Like, that's
we have fought friends on the field.
100%. I have literally got into it, and then after the game, are we good?
Yep.
Are we good? We good? All right, we good.
But the quarterbacks that are being compared to and dissected on this Micah Parsons podcast, when they press cut at the end of the pod, it's not like he can be like, hey, you know what I was saying there, right?
Yeah, no. Once it's out there in ink, man.
You're going to be taking a dump as the quarterback of the Cowboys the next morning and watching a clip.
Hold on, he didn't mention me in the top 10?
The best player on your team. I don't know. It probably wouldn't have flown when I got in the league. Yeah. I'm not sure it would have flown when you were in the league. It was shocking when guys first started to do it at the end of our careers, but now it's commonplace.
I do think, to the Parsons point, and I think he may even be costing himself some money in terms of if he does hit free agency or if there is an open market for him, there will be teams that just won't want to pay for a guy, won't want that in their locker room, right? Won't want a guy who's going to go on a podcast and do things of that nature, just like be liable to make a headline week in and week out. They might just be like, I'm not going to pay that guy $50 million, $40 million a year, whatever. So I do think that with the money that it is in NFL contracts nowadays, the money you can get from a podcast pales in comparison. It just pales in comparison. Your
risk reward is
so.
Unless you're Travis.
But again, Travis and Jason did it when they were 34.
But they did.
They did. It's all about the rule, not the exception. Exactly.
All right. Next mailbag question comes from TJ Lang. Speaking of sitting.
Really?
TJ Lang said, were you behind pushing the media out of the locker room? That's you, Kyle.
TJ trying to get you, yo.
Yo! Okay, TJ, first off, screw you.
I wonder if that's actually him.
That is. It is. That's TJ. TJ, man, I love you. And a little sidebar about TJ. When I was a rookie and I was still trying to figure out, get my bearings about me, and I'm playing the Packers, and it's Mike Daniels, Clay Matthews, all these monsters. TJ walked up to me after the game. He's like, keep your head on right. You're going to be a good player. I'll never forget the conversation he had with me after that.
Nice.
Shout out to TJ. But you know what? I was in Washington, and you've probably seen this on the internet, but I was in Washington after a Monday night game. I was playing hurt. Matt Ioannidis was giving me the business. and all I wanted to do was get out of the locker room after the game. Talk to the media and get out of the locker room. And we did our 1-2-3 break at the end of the game. We beat the Commanders at the time, but they weren't named that. We beat them, and we did 1-2-3 break. And I immediately went to the shower to get my locker to get my towel, drop trowel. Tariq Cohen, our do everything running back, went IG live to go, do a little post game dancing, and I was in the background, just like in compression short. I was,
he's outside,
compression shorts to outside quickly, and sometimes things don't happen very nice. So TJ, I get what you're saying here, and I don't know. I didn't make any phone calls about this, but I wasn't the first guy. I probably won't be the last guy to be nude on camera in a locker room, but. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me that the media is in there. Ironically enough, it was my own teammate that got me. It wasn't the media. Thanks. So at the end of the day, I could care less. Like, if you need a safe space to go talk to the media, let that be your thing. Come see me in my locker.
Well, we've talked about this before, Kyle. The locker room is probably the most unique, quote unquote, office out of any career field in the world.
Yeah.
Right. So many different personalities, so many different economical backgrounds. And I just think, and again, we're in the media now, but I always felt like if you wanted to talk to the media, like you should be able to do that outside the locker room because guys want to be able to feel free to say what they want to. And that's what makes the locker room beautiful because everybody grew up differently in there and you can have candid conversations. The last thing you want is to have that put out there because somebody from the media was overhearing that, right?
Yep.
So I see it from both ends of the spectrum. I know the media has a job to do, right? They're there to ask questions, to do their stories and whatnot for the rest of the week. But I always felt like, maybe if there was just a designated area where like the media could be like, can we talk to you, out here? I have no issue with that just because I feel like guys just feel more free. And it also brings the team closer together. Like besides meeting room, that's where you spend most of your time with your teammates in the locker room, having those conversations. So I thought that was always a thing that they maybe tweaked because I know a lot of players hated the media coming in. One, because like you said, a lot of times you're getting dressed and undressed and guys are in there and you're trying to ask
tough
questions.
losses,
or after a loss.
Space.
Exactly, 100%. But I'm even talking about daily throughout the week. It's just like, I don't even feel like I can change right now because there's like 30 people in here. I can't walk around and, guys walk around in towels and stuff like that.
Or less.
They put another guy.
A lot of O-linemen enjoy the don't look at me. And they do I bet you won't keep your eyes off me. The worse the body on the O-lineman, the more naked they're going to be.
100%. So like, yeah, I wouldn't mind a spot like right out, which I think they do now, right outside the locker room where guys, again, we respect the media and we know they have a job to do.
100%.
But I just feel like the locker room's a different place.
And, there's women in there too as well. And, you have to, now that I have a wife and daughters, like I realize, and I didn't when I was playing and it didn't impact how I treated these people at all. I mostly treated the media pretty well. Yeah. That's why I'm in it now. But now I realize like, these are people's girlfriends, wives,
100%,
sisters.
Like,
so
there needs to be some respect.
Some decorum.
Sure. 100%.
All right, let's get to this Bears question, or should I say questions? Because
oh my God,
everyone wanted to know Kyle about this. Here, I'll read them out for you guys. Why won't the Bears fire the head coach now? Should the Bears fire Ryan Poles since he refused to fire Matt?
Should I rapid fire these?
How far down do the Chicago Bears woes go? Can you play Sunday? Is history repeating itself for the Bears? Do you think Poles' hands are tied by ownership in regards to firing Eberflus? Do you think the Bears will make the right choice this offseason? I think I can answer the last one. They probably won't make the right choice this offseason, but you go ahead.
So pull these questions up again. That's a great looking collage there, by the way, Harry. So Cindy Frashecki, the answer to your questions, why won't the Bears fire the head coach now? Because they've never done it. It's just not something that the Bears do. Virginia McCaskey and the George McCaskey Brain Trust in Chicago, they just won't allow it. It's not a classy way to do it in their opinion.
I agree with that line of thinking too. I don't think firing coaches midseason is ever like
no. It's an ejection. You got to get it right in the offseason.
Literally never worked out. Which is why
should the Bears fire Ryan Poles since he refuses to fire Matt Eberflus? No, they should not fire Ryan Poles. Ryan Schiffman, what's up, coach? How far down do the Chicago Bears woes go? Is it as simple a fix as changing the OC, or are their problems deeply rooted in talent and development, especially on the offensive line? I think that talent development is a big issue there, obviously. I think that the coordinator and the quarterback was not the right pairing, and the writing was on the wall from the very beginning. You could see it with an Adam Hogue interview with Jackson Smith and Jigba in the offseason, where they asked him about what their new OC was going to be like, and he just said, good luck. And you know what? I tried to ignore it at the time, but you can't ignore things that are that bright and shining. And in my opinion, they got it wrong from the very beginning with Waldron. Can you play Sunday? I could.
Is my man snatching the other day?
Is history repeating itself for the Bears?
I saw that.
Yes, it is, unfortunately, David. Yes, it is. But I do think that we can avoid the iceberg. Right now, we are just in some shitty, rough waters, and I could say it could get even worse than this. Do you think Poles' hands are tied by ownership in regards to firing Eberflus, or is he just too stubborn to give up his own guys? Claypool, Velus, Nate Davis. Here's what I think. I think all the people that are in positions of power in Chicago are represented by the same agent, and
they are.
That's kind of sketchy. Do you think that the Bears will make the right choice this offseason? And here's where I'll buck the trend of negativity? I think they will. I think they will lose out. Maybe have one win the rest of the season, and they will make a change immediately, and they will get first dibs on the coach that the Chicago Bears need and deserve. I think it starts with getting a head of football operations that is somebody that's a football guy. I don't want a businessman. I don't want a lawyer. I don't want a chaplain. I don't want Jack Easterby. What I want is Mike Vrabel. I want a guy. I'm not talking about head coach.
Yeah.
I want to elevate Mike Vrabel's position and make him even more important than a head coach. And I want him to be somebody that builds the culture. I want you to then get the best offensive coach available and use the pieces on your defensive side of the ball to maintain a competitive football team. But I think it doesn't start until you put somebody with a real football background in charge of football decisions in Chicago. And I think that's what the people deserve.
So would you want him to have more power than Poles, Vrabel?
I want Poles, Vrabel, and Ian Yates Cunningham to work hand in hand together. But I want Vrabel to have final say.
My one point to add, Bears last 6 drafts, 3 offensive linemen drafted in the top 100, and their one lone starting offensive lineman from like the pre-Poles era, James Daniels, they let him walk out the door. So,
and then he got even better in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, for sure.
When that's the case,
because Braxton,
it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to build an offensive line, right? You don't have any. They didn't have any. It's not like the Eagles where you had all these guys grandfathered in, and even the Eagles invest a lot more than the Bears do in their offensive line.
Go look at the years we had success offensively. We had some badass groups on the front.
Building an offensive line through free agency is freaking difficult.
Very much so.
The Commanders did a good job of it, but they also had some homegrown talent to bolster to that. But it's tough, man. It's just because if a guy's letting an offensive lineman walk out the door, usually it's because they're injured or something else is going on with them that they're willing to let them walk. More often than not, if a guy's good, they get re-signed and they stay there their entire career until they can't give anything left. It's almost no one lets a good offensive lineman walk out the door. So you got to draft him. Got to draft him.
Perfect example. And it's hard to do this because it made no sense why they signed all these guys, is the Rams, right? They signed, Avila was a second round pick.
Yeah.
But Jonah Jackson, and they had Dotson as well. All 3 of those guys are guards. None of them are centers. And I don't know what, and again, I think Les Snead, home run draft, has done a really good job developing, especially him and McVay, developing lower end draft picks to become really good players. But I just didn't understand that one, right? I was like, at first they cross-trained Avila to do it all off season in training camp, but then right before the season they wanted to switch. And Kyle, you can speak to this. Like, what does that do for an offensive lineman when you think you're going to play center and they switch you to guard, and the guard thinks he's going to play guard, and then they switch him to center? We saw some of the issues this past Monday night with that, and all 3 of those players are really great players, but I don't think they're in a winning situation because of one guy's going to have to play center out of position.
It's like when we talk about the Chicago Bears receiver room and how they have talent at the receiver room, but they don't have the right kind of talent for their situation. And you look at some of these mismatched receiver cores around the offense or around the NFL, and offensively, you want different archetypes at different positions. You want a speedster, you want a big body guy, you want a separator. Well, same thing with offensive line. There are God-made guards, God-made tackles, and God-made centers.
Sure.
Our brains are different. Our bodies are different. Our experiences are different. And when you pluck them out of their pond and put them in somebody else's pond, they're going to feel uncomfortable. And it takes time and continuity. And if you don't have that, it's not good, to your point.
All right, next question. Seems like even the good teams are struggling. This is from Scott from Oakland. Seems like even the good teams are struggling to protect their quarterback. Lions, Texans, do you think that the league should make some minor changes to typically annoying penalties like guys on the line, keep the motion rules, pass blocking scarcity? We kind of discussed this the other day that I think the NFL might, but I'm not sure what you can necessarily do rather than, I think the only thing is like a numbers match sort of rule where you can't have more on the line or like than the offense has on the line or something to prevent.
Talking about defensive wise?
Yeah, I'm talking about like defensive line.
So if you're in a condensed formation,
what rule could you use?
So if you have 5 offensive linemen and you have a tight end on each side, so that's 7 people, you could only have 7 people in the tackle box.
Something like that.
Like you have to
That's
match.
nonsense. How about we work on technique? What everybody say? How about we work on technique?
I'm with you because if you put all those guys here and we do have an answer for your pressure package, somebody's going to be screaming.
Yeah, it's going to be one-on-one if all those guys come.
Yep.
Like, make a play.
I'm with you.
You remember when, who was it that said that they should outlaw the too high safety look?
Yeah.
Kuiper, right?
Mel Kiper.
Like, what are we talking about here?
I agree. I don't want to chase you.
How about work on your technique, your fundamentals, and get better? How about that?
Get good, kid.
This one comes from Coach Brisket. He says A-gap power or wide zone.
Oh. Am I front side or backside? Am I on the double team?
I want to say the double team. He wants the power.
Am I in the double? Because I ain't pulling. I hate that pulling shit. I want to be at the deuce. I want to be at the point of attack. I want to displace the line of scrimmage. Or if we're wide zone, I want to run 39, and I want to be the guy with the 3 technique on the backside.
I hate that.
I'm passing you to my tackle, and then you know who I'm going to go get. I'm going to go get your little homie. I'm going to bring him back to the wall and put him in the bleachers.
There's nothing worse in the wide zone scheme when you're either the nose or the 3 technique, and that front side guard really gets out on you, and then the center, and you still got hands on him, and then the center just whams you
and you
over.
Ricochet.
Oh my God.
It's this. Boom, boom.
Ain't nothing worse than that, man.
I love wide zone because you know what? There is so when you call A-gap power, that's it. It's in the name. It's going to the A-gap. And I mean, for 95% of those plays are going to hit right behind the puller, striking a match off that double team. When you go wide zone, you have so many options. You have so many options depending on how the linebackers play, how your fits are at the line of scrimmage. You can cut, you can bounce it, you can go inside the tackle, you can cut right behind the center.
Yep.
You can even bend that thing back. So wide zone, in my opinion, is the answer 7 days a week.
Next one from Monty. How does the recent Jags and Cowboys games reflect on Dak and Trevor, respectively? Seems like they were the only things keeping those offenses afloat. I mean, yeah, it just, I think it reflects on them, reflects on the coaching staffs. It's like these offenses were not built to be quarterback friendly. If they were, their backups could have done anything, and their backups did absolutely so. So they were built to have one guy at the point.
I smoked Cooper Rush and Madden last night.
I would hope you.
So I was the Chiefs last night because I'm tired of getting beat when I'm the Bears. So I was the Chiefs, and it was Chiefs Cowboys, and I was like, oh, this could be a good game. And then they trotted out Cooper Rush. They must have updated rosters. That guy was so pissed. He was so pissed. Okay, moving on.
Next question from Brock. In your estimation, how many blue chip prospects are there in the upcoming draft, and who are they? So I think everyone has kind of a different definition of blue chip. If I'm going like a really high end, these guys are very likely to be Pro Bowl caliber players at the end.
Travis Hunter.
Like a sure thing-ish at their respective position. I think you got Travis Hunter. I think you have Malachi Starks, the Georgia safety. And I think you have Ashton Genty, the Boise State running back. That's it. In terms of just like guys that for sure. Now, if I'm going to put it down a little bit where it's like guys that aren't necessarily every class will have a guy that good at their respective position. I think I'll throw Will Johnson at cornerback, the cornerback from Michigan, in that mix.
Willie Johnson.
And I'd throw Mason Graham, the DT from Michigan, in that mix. And that's probably where we finish. It's just not a great class in terms of the top end talent. If I'm going just looking at last year's class, I had something like 8 guys I would call blue chip in terms of like special Pro Bowl talents. This year, it's not even close. It's just a different level of potential.
Where are you on Pearson, Abdul Carter?
I like Abdul Carter. It's just he's not refined whatsoever. He's first.
I mean, neither was Chop either.
Yeah. So I think Carter's much better than Chop.
I think he is too.
I think compared to last year's class, compared to the 2 guys who I really like Dallas Turner. I really liked Latu. I was probably a little bit lower on Verse than those 2. Obviously, in retrospect, it looks foolish of me. But I think I'd put Abdul Carter in that range of prospect. And I didn't think those guys were special. I didn't think those guys were at the level of a Miles Garrett, which obviously like no one. I mean, like, of like a real true top end, even like a Chase Young coming out, I had a higher grade on.
When I looked at Verse, I was like, I think I had him as either the second, but right there at the third. And like him and like Dallas Turner were back and forth. Now I still had Dallas going before both of them, just because of the youth and upside and arm length and all that. And then also Latu had medical, so like that was a concern. I thought Latu was the most polished edge rusher I'd seen in a while.
He's got a bag of tricks.
Oh my God! But again, there was medical concerns. So, but with Verse, I always wondered will that speed to power translate, and my goodness, does it ever translate? And this is why, like, when people, and I hate doing player comps, but I was like, I see Khalil Mack in him, right? And I was like, but I don't know if it'll transition or translate like it did for Khalil Mack, but it has. Like it literally
even faster than Mack.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like
rookie even.
So like I knew he was explosive, but I was like, I thought he was a little bit stiff. What Khalil Mack was a little stiff as well, but that speed, the power that Khalil Mack
I
brought.
hated playing Khalil Mack.
Oh my God! Like
he got that deep,
Jared Verse
very
has
white voice too.
Been everything is advertised. The crazy thing, the Rams literally essentially stole him because I think a lot of people had him as like a top 10, almost.
Because just so offense went so heavy. I didn't.
Exactly.
Guys like Talia I couldn't believe went. Like a few guys.
He dropped lower too than I thought. Yeah.
How these
There's
guys
a run
go.
on some of these positions.
Yeah. So everyone wanted O-line before D-line. All right. Next question from Jorts asks, how often should I be having a bowel movement?
Oh my goodness.
This was for Kyle.
Let's just go through the day. You know what I'm saying? This is
I'm pretty much like every meal within an hour.
So you're like me.
Yeah.
there's no room in this guy though. It's like a
IBS. Right?
his stomach is it's like a studio
like a dog.
apartment in New York City. It's like, hey, get out of here. I just got here. I would say you wake up, you might have a little, drink water. First thing you do when you wake up, water and pee.
Yeah.
Brush your teeth and then go get some coffee.
Coffee gonna get it out of you.
So there's one. I would say probably after work. So there's two, and maybe once in the evening. So maybe
Okay, thank you. So like
2.5 to 3 range.
I always thought that was regular, like 3.
I'll set the over under 2.5.
I was saying, and people are like,
This is a crappy,
I'm
crappy line.
This is a crazy conversation, but I've had this conversation with people before, and they're like, "You go to the bathroom 3 times?" I'm like, "Isn't that normal?"
And when you're on an an NFL team, you find out when everybody poops.
100%.
So like, there's only 10 stalls. You know,
there's always that one sneaky one that nobody knows.
yeah, the
to know
sneaky
about.
link pooper. Where it's like in the atrium or something like that.
I used to go blow up the trainers. Bathroom.
When I was in Chicago, I don't think I've ever said this publicly, but I would sneak into the coach's office and take dumps.
You know, those bathrooms are nice.
Bro, like I'm talking warm seats, and warm seats not because somebody was just on it, but because like they got heated.
That heated seat.
All right, last question here comes from a few different people. They want to know
How often you pee?
Oh, wait, here we got Caleb Williams. How long before Caleb Williams is labeled a bust? Do you think there's a reason besides pre-draft evaluations and popular opinion for Caleb Williams to seemingly be getting so much more grace than Bryce Young when their stats are so similar through 9 games of their respective careers? And then Jason Engelhart wants to know, why not Tyson?
That's why I asked you that question.
I can't talk about benching Caleb Williams anymore. I got too roasted on social media after I did earlier this season.
Really?
But I do think that
because Bryce Young's a munchkin.
In retrospect, you wish that you would have just not had him play this season, right? I think with the way he's playing right now, you would have rather just said, hey, maybe just not play, but like, hey, take 8 games. Take whatever.
6 to 8 games.
Yeah. Like what they did with Drake May, but I think maybe even longer, and just be like, just get acclimated.
It would have been cool. Okay, this is fantasy land here. This is alternate universe. I think you play Caleb Williams, by the way. I think you play him.
At this point, I think so too.
I think you play him. Yeah. But if I could do it again and have like you remember when you played on PlayStation 2, you could have your save game and then your second save game where you make a different decision. You want to see if it goes differently, make a different decision. Tyson Bagent, if he goes out there and plays this year and he plays well, and I'm talking relative to either Caleb Williams or what we've seen from Tyson Bagent before, we've seen him go out there and look like a serviceable quarterback.
Correct.
You raise his value, you deal him, you get even more value. So it's like investing in your own team with Caleb Williams developing and not playing.
I think in complete retrospect, what you would have wanted to do is never trade Justin Fields.
Wow.
He starts this year, and then he walks, and he probably gets somewhere in the neighborhood of like 2 years, $30 million or something, like a prove-it-ish deal. And you get like a 4th-round pick compensatory back instead of what, the 5th rounder you're going to get now because he's not starting enough games.
I'm glad that we have Caleb Williams. I won't go.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you draft Caleb Williams too. Like you would have drafted Caleb Williams and kept Justin Fields.
That was a scenario that I brought
and then
up.
just let Caleb Williams have a year on the bench.
Correct.
To say, hey, Caleb.
I would have been cool for that.
Like when the Bengals drafted Carson Palmer, they had John Kitna. They said John Kitna gets this year.
Carson Palmer, number 1 pick, didn't play his first year.
Didn't play his first year. That's what I would have done in retrospect.
Right away.
Crazy. But the issue is people in Chicago were of the thought process that if you bring in a guy like Caleb Williams,
he's our savior,
and keep Justin Fields, it would divide the locker room. And ironically enough, they got rid of Justin Fields, brought in Caleb Williams, and the locker room's divided. So we can't get right here. You know,
DJ Moore is not happy.
It's like being in an argument with my wife. We're just never right here. I'm just wrong. You know, I'm just wrong, Leger. That's the way it goes.
100%.
All right, there you have it. There's your mailbag. As always,
that was fun.
5-star review on Apple Pods with your question, as we saw at the beginning of the show. We will for sure answer it. Until next time, we'll do preview tomorrow.
Keep pushing. Peace.